Playbook: How to Navigate Battle Against Authoritarians in the Digital World, with Executive Director of Canvas Center for Applied Nonviolent Actions and Strategies, and distinguished visitor at Colorado College, Srdja Popovic. Behave. Let's take a moment to thank our supporters: Piemans Foundation, Richard Petritz Foundation, and also thank you to our institutional members: El Pomar, UCCS, Pikes Peak State College, Colorado Springs Chamber and EDC, SIVA Charter High School, and Fountain Valley School. The very initiative for this event focused on this specific topic came from our longtime supporter and partner, Mr. Jeff Cooper, Executive Director of the Richard Petritz Foundation. And when he contacted us with this idea, my first thought was, I know a person who would be a great fit for this. It won't be me who will announce today's speaker. I will turn the microphone to our board member and my dear friend, Edin Mujkic, Professor of National Security and Foreign Policy at UCCS. Edin, please introduce our today's speaker.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming. We kind of use all good speakers this year, so thanks for coming for this event. This topic is obviously very timely topic, considering what's happening in the world and in Europe, in Ukraine, and today what happened in the Balkans. But Srdja is probably the best person to talk about this stuff. This country allows a lot of different people to come here. Yesterday I read an short article by one professor at the Northeastern University who said that Ukraine should immediately sign a peace deal and just give up whatever the Russians took and go from there. And I was starting to think how theory, what is the difference between theory and practice there? Some people have a very good understanding of theory and have a very good intentions, but the problem is experience and practice. And we are fortunate enough to have Srdja here with his practical, I'm not sure that all of that is fortunate experience, but good with his experience and his knowledge to really tell us about dangers of propaganda and how propaganda works. Srdja was a founder of Popovic in Serbia. A lot of you remember that the good old 90s in the Balkans. And one of the critical people who took down Slobodan Milosevic, who had a really nice nickname, Butcher of the Balkans. And so I don't think there is anyone better to present that. Srdja works with a lot of NGOs around the world, helping them to fight authoritarianism, dictators, wannabe dictators, etc., etc., etc. I think you are also pronounced as, you're a terrorist in some country, right? Qatar or something like that.
Emirates.
Emirates, okay. So no Emirates terrorists for you. So he's still helping these people, NGOs, etc., in various countries to fight authoritarianism, dictatorships, and etc., etc. So we're fortunate enough, he's our neighbor. He lives in Colorado Springs, and Srdja Popovic.
Thank you, Edin, for this nice introduction. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Jeff, for proposing this. Thank you, Masha, for organizing. Unlike other speakers, I'm here more of +1 because my marvelous wife actually organized this event, so I'm just a bodyguard. Kind of. So the idea for this is coming from two different sources. One is the fact that my organization works with movements worldwide, and we are really into building these skills of countering state propaganda and narratives and this type of communication. Another one is we thanks to my other good friend who is in the audience here, John Gould, we have the pleasure of teaching this at Colorado College. Some of my best students are there. And we turned it into the course named Campaigning in the Digital Era. And while developing this, we tried to dig into this. So this will be like 3-piece presentation. If the first one is boring, you can sleep or talk, which is where I will explain a little bit about how propaganda works generally. And then I will shift into how propaganda contributes to authoritarianism with a little bit of focus on my favorite character with a lot of propaganda asset and a lot of Botox, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin. And then moving into where we could go from there and how we can counter this, and then open it to the questions. I would also love to say how grateful I am that the young generation of me and Masha, the offspring, is here. So I don't know if you're used to have 6 and 9 days. Okay, so let's start with this thing that when we say propaganda, it has kind of the bad thing. So here in the West, we like to call it targeted communication, and then it immediately turns into marketing and stuff like that. So it sounds less bad. But it's basically use of the information and narratives in order to make you do things, love things, or most effectively buy things. So basically, this is where we are starting with. And let's start with what is propaganda and where it is coming from, and why it is so important. It is important because most of our realities rely on facts. And this is where we start playing this game. And speaking about the facts, we can play a little bit of pop culture images like Marlboro Man. How many of you have heard about the Marlboro Man? Okay, I was a very close friend to Marlboro Man. For about 30 years, I was smoking only Marlboros. So when you take a look at the picture of this cowboy and you see freedom and strength and independence and mucho machoism and all this kind of stuff, and then you take a look at the product, and the product is actually making you sick, addicted, and it's one of the main reasons for male impotency. This is what the fact is. And also this guy, he's not even from mountains. He was there only for photo shooting. He died of lung cancer and ended up suing the Philip Morris. But we don't know this. The facts don't speak for themselves. They obtain meaning only when put in the context. Now let's go to a little more. Yeah, and the women will be nicer in this also. It's like this. And they have a beautiful skin, like me. Okay, now move to something more contemporary, more dramatic. How many of you have heard about a hurricane named Katrina? The one that smacked New Orleans a few years ago. Nobody giving a shit, president flying in Air Force One, people figuring out how to survive, no food, no water, sheltering in place, most on the top of the buildings. So this is the news coming from 2 mainstream news agencies on the same day about the same event. Let's read one first. A young man walks through chest-deep flood water after looting a grocery store in New Orleans on Tuesday. Flood waters continue to rise in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina did extensive damage, blah, 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 blah. And then the second one, the difference is 2 hours. 2 residents wade through chest-deep water after finding bread. Now take a look at the pictures. What's the difference? The person who is looting is, of course, Afro-American. Okay, these guys who are saving their ass, they are white. This guy who is looting is not white. So this is how it works. You don't see it. It's everywhere, but it's a context. It's the same thing, the same fact, the same report, almost the same picture, but one word makes a big difference. Now, how this engine of communication works. instead of just focusing on a message, which is whatever, we bring world to Colorado Springs for Colorado Springs World Affairs Council, the real propaganda started by understanding their target. So what is the target audience we are sending message to? And then move to the message. And then move to the messenger. And then feedback, and then again. In other words, we are getting into the pretty cool Phantom Canyon bar. So the ads you will see in the elevator or on the stairs would probably be beer, Cheetos, billiard, baseball. You don't expect to see vegan food advertisement here, or whatever supplements that will make you healthier. You're not going to the bar to become healthier, yes? Well, I'm going to become the bar to become healthier, but I'm a sir. It's a very different thing. But when you go to the gym at Colorado College, however, you have these marvelous things like, walk with us, do yoga with us, this kind of dancing, this kind of healing. Because when you go to gym, you're ready to receive that information. When you go to bar, you're ready to receive some other information. And all of the propaganda, whether state, movements, companies, they know this thing. They even know the timing of where to place this thing. So basically, in every single social conflict, you see 4 different types of audiences, and you want them always to do exactly the same thing. You speak to your members and supporters. This is what the Republican Party is doing a lot these days. When you're like, this sounds crazy, you understand? They're not talking to you, they're talking to somebody who doesn't think this is crazy. Then they're talking to a wider audience, whom they want to shift from place A to place B. Or later, I'll explain, to confuse. Then, of course, they talk to the potential allies, which is why Putin needs to be the leader of the BRICS. Though he appears in the BRICS just on a little small screen, he cannot really travel. And then they're speaking to the foreign players, whatever they are, international community, people from outside the town, things like that. So these are your targets. And you need to understand your targets and you need to talk to your targets. Just a little touch of practice after this boring explanation of theory. Because the propaganda is based on emotions, not on information. This is why the picture says more than 1,000 words. When the movements are staging their thing, and this is what I do for a living, I teach movements to perform things like this. Look at this picture. Who are the good guys? Who are the bad guys? This, of course, American Civil Rights Movement. On whose side you would be after looking at it 10 seconds? Plus, additional subtle message. This is not only about the black people. This is about all people. You see? One picture tells a lot. And at the same time, you can have a small group of people who overtake your message or screw your message as the results go on. There's this marvelous Black Lives Matter movement driven by a just anger about the horrendous killing of a black person by a white policeman. And driven by a systemic racism, which unfortunately still exists in this country. But then a few idiots will put the tactical equipment on them, make fire, and this becomes the face of them. So when you communicate, you need to communicate carefully. You need to know what will come out as a message. Because then your opponent can take this and say, well, look, this is an armed resistance or whatsoever. Plus, this guy doesn't look black. Basically, on the top of the things, the key point I want you to take from this boring introduction is what sells. What are you buying? When you're buying a political state, when you're buying a piece of cosmetics, when you're buying, in my case, Mercedes, in the case of my dear friend Ian Peters over here, Tesla. He showed me this tablet and said, I have this wonderful car, so where are the car? It's a tablet. You use it as a cell phone. It drives itself. Really? I don't do that. Okay, so basically the reason why we are succumbed to the propaganda is that whoever creates it knows the trick. So when you're buying a piece of cosmetics from a person like Mila Jovovich, Penelope Cruz, Andy McDowell, are you really buying a piece of cosmetics? Why every single piece of cosmetics is sold to you by a good-looking woman? Is it because men buy cosmetics? No. What are they selling? Image. Hope. Now just put this on, this is how you will look, you see? From this to this, you don't even think about it. Also, that was like, I love talking about my brands. This was my brand for years until I moved here and had to disguise myself into Buick so people don't figure out who I am. But I was driving Mercedes basically since I was 21, and my first one was older than me. And are you really buying a safe, good-looking, stable, low-consumption, environmentally friendly car when you're buying Mercedes? You're buying yourself a ticket to the club. Same as Colorado College professors with their Subarus. This is a brand affiliation, no. But once again, the key is you need to understand that emotions sell. And this is what you need to know. When you're receiving propaganda, you're receiving, every time you turn the news feed on your phone, you're the target. So you need to have this in your head. And then the propagandists will try to sell you strategic goals. They'll try to sell you tactical goals. They will sell you information. They will sell you emotion. Let's start with this. I want to persuade you about something about the climate change. Will I start with boring facts? No. I will start with a picture of a cute polar bear cubby dying somewhere in the heat. Then you will start reading something about that, and then there will be an image of a melting glacier or something very dramatic. And then I will make you read things. And then finally you will understand that the planet is going to hell, and it will be around here, knowledge. And then I'll try to give you some kind of call to action, like turn the lights off, something little you can do. Shift to hybrid, if you can, don't drive big. Coming from me, that sounds really hypocritical. It's like, and then the key, the reason, the main purpose of propaganda is not have your attitude, is make you do things. Politicians, they don't want you to love them. They want you to vote for them. Companies, they want to appreciate them. They want to buy malware. Always malware. Just not to buy cigarettes, but malware. And things of that kind. So all of these things taken into account, this is a good framework for 21st century. This is what works in 20th century. And now it's upgraded. Unfortunately, once again, those who rely more on propaganda and those who understand it better are the bad guys. I normally shock my students in my digital media class, saying that what Hollywood has done to Soviet Union in terms of destroying this fake, bad, dictatorial, state-owned control economy, I mean, you can name Soviet Union whatever you want. This is what social media are doing to the world. So we have invented our own doom, and the bad guys are using it daily. First of all, in their own countries, there are three things that they normally do. We often think about the censorship. If you're in China and you try to type in my name, there is no way you'll get something on Google. Okay? Try to type in my name here, you'll get 3,000 references. This is called the big firewall of China. So there is no way you can access potentially harmful information to the Chinese regime if you are in China. No way. You cannot watch CNN in China. Well, not that I love CNN. Then moving to the fake news, this beautiful form, like fake news is a terrorism of 21st century. So you can put anything in the box of terrorism after 9/11, now you can put anything into fake news. And then institutionalizing or weaponizing the fake news, we had, only last year, we had 17 countries which brought law in which when you criticize the government, then it's a fake news and that's a liability. And you get fined and you go in jail. So better don't criticize your government on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever. And then, of course, the most horrifying part is that expect in a month or two or in a year or two to see image of somebody like Martin Luther King or Barack Obama giving you the straight racist message. The real fake videos are so good now, and they're produced by artificial intelligence. 4 weeks ago, on his final rally, one of the masters of it, Recep Tayyip Erdogan of Turkey, played a video, real fake video, of an opposition leader on his final election rally, saying that in case we win, we will align with the Kurds and we are going to give excuses to the Kurdish movement in blah, 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 which is what the nationalists voting for Erdogan are specifically allergic to. There's only one problem. His counter-candidate never said that. Never, never. It was his face, it was his video, it was his voice. But he never said it. So soon we may expect even more kind of diversion from the truth. So what this modern model of propaganda works is that unlike the propaganda of our ages, I'm closer to my age, to most of you than to my kids or my students. I'm 50. They try to sell you stuff or they try to persuade you about the stuff. Now, it's of course high volume and multi-channel. We're not getting it only from the TV. It's super rapid because our attention span is very short. You know what's attention span on Twitter? 8 seconds. 8 seconds. So whatever they need to sell you, it needs to be catchy. It's called clickbait. So it needs to contain something shocking or a big title or, And then the key, it lacks commitment to objective reality or the consistency. This is very weird. Propaganda I grew on relied on consistency. So there were things that it was sticking it to. So if you're, if you're a lefty, you need to be for free love and, pro-abortion and blah, blah, and then it keeps going on and on. Now it doesn't matter. The power of dictatorial propaganda is not in offering alternative facts. Ronald Reagan had a great idea that if you can show Russian people how you live in the West, the Berlin Wall will fall. And it worked great. The idea of Putin is not to present you an alternative reality, because nobody will buy into this bullshit. 300 people owning 52% of the national wealth in Russia. Yeah, that's the equality of that country. Systemic ethnical racism, against any ethnicity which is not Russian. Total suppression over sexual minorities, jailing of political minorities. I mean, you name it, you have it. So he cannot sell that thing. What he's selling to you is called whataboutism. Whenever you see whataboutism, make a step back. So yes, we're invading Ukraine, but what about Iraq? This is how it sounds. Oh yeah, we have these big tycoons, but what about America? Oh yeah, our healthcare system is shit, but what about this? And what about that? And what about this? And what about that? The goal of this is not to offer you the alternative. It's to confuse you. So there is no reference point. And if truth doesn't exist anymore, then it doesn't matter. What, however, matters in the 21st century is a source. So the statistics show that you believe an information, and it makes a lot of sense. If you hear it from the source, you trust. But in the era of social media, it's particularly tricky. Because the way the social media works, and this is the algorithm of Facebook, it's a little bit different on Twitter, but it's basically the same thing. So the chances you see a post on Facebook, who created it? So if you follow Fox News, you will get more content from Fox News. Is this thing very popular among other users? In other ways, shocking things, naked woman breasts and stuff will have priority because they have more views. What is the type of the post? Text, video, shocking photo. This is what we're going after. And then most important thing is here. Because if you follow me, and then you follow my wife, and then you follow John Bull, and then you follow Adin, and then you follow Ian, just to mention some people in the audience who have a pretty similar political views to me, then you will be getting things that we like more. And that means we're ending in echo chambers. We don't cross our points of view. We don't argue, there is no debate. It is us and them about almost anything. And social media are feeding this type of atomization of the society. Of course, Sauron was quick to capitalize on this. He's still winning this propaganda war, however strange it may look from a Colorado mountain. So this is the blueprint of thing, followed by the machinery of thing, that these guys developed while we were sleeping. And we still have this Stone Age era Voice of America cardboard studio from 1967. This is how Americans take this seriously, yes? So this is high volume and multi-channel. It's shameless in its willingness to broadcast the lies. Truth doesn't matter. Clickability matters. Because once again, it's not the reference points to something I want you to persuade. The goal is that a low trust environment will be even lower trust. So traditional media, like New York Times, they want you to believe the power of the journalism, the power of the brand. This thing is upside down. Not that they don't want you to trust them. They want you not to trust anything. Because then you will not trust truth. And this is exactly what they want. And of course, then it gets amplified through the volume. The key of this is narrative. Any single protest in any single country, I ended up my day caring about three of the members of my organization who were arrested in Georgia because of spreading the color revolution. Every single protest that happened is it's a Russian playbook, orchestrated by the West. Protesters were paid, instructed by the West. E.g. idiots, who are puppet mastered by somebody else. This is a Russophobic provocation. Of course, there is a CIA or Ukraine. If you can blend a little bit of Nazis into this, and of course, they want to bring down our familial values and replace it with LGBT propaganda. So we appeal to our own audience as well. When you step back from it, you understand the real picture. You know who can swallow this? Somebody who thinks that people are sheep. And they don't see injustice. And they don't see corruption. And they're incapable to mobilize against it. Because of course it's orchestrated, master puppeted, whatsoever. And then you look into the propagandist Botox hat. And he really believed that people are sheep. That's what he believes. And then the machine appears. This is how the machine of war, which still wins propaganda war in the majority of the world, look. It starts with intelligence-linked things which are producing news, moving to SVR, FSB, all these things, and then immediately moves into the Telegram analysts. And some of these analysts are professors of university who either swallow this crap or are paid to do this crap. And these troll factories goes from stupid people who just clicks minuses and pluses on the comments, all the way to the people who pretend to be astrologers. And they have their very fellow astrologist channel, and time after time they appear on the TV and say, the stars are saying that Putin will rule forever. It goes from super blunt to super soft. And of course there are associates in many countries. You want to read the extension of Russian propaganda in US? Go and find something called Brazen. It looks like a decent, investigative journalism. Except it's not decent and it's not journalism. It's near, but it's written, it looks like that. It looks like there are sources. Every single link you click is a shit. But people don't click, and they come on it. So from a blunt package of blunt news, all the way to the multi-language things, these guys are having well-funded machine. This one you like. People like this. This is how the war in Ukraine actually looks. Because picture says more than 1,000 words. But basically there is a whole digital war happening everywhere, ranging from hacking and battle of narratives, all the way to this mucho macho thing, because basically Putin seems to be really screwed up that it is Zelensky that women want to date. And he's also short, Zelensky. But he's still winning. Majority of the world is not seeing the war as it is. You speak to Latin Americans and you say, it's like, you don't really understand this thing. You guys have been colonized, and you guys justly objected to colonization. And you guys were supporting anti-colonial movements around the world, and you guys in Brazil protested in millions when America invaded Iraq. But you're supporting Russia colonial war in Ukraine? How come? Because the machine is feeding. And machine is still winning. We will never win this war before we persuade Modi to step down. If Modi steps down from the boat, if India puts a cap on Russian oil, war is over in 6 months. Not Xi. Xi is preparing to buy Russia. That's a different thing. You cannot persuade Xi. But Modi, you can persuade Modi maybe. So once again, the most important battlefield in war, in democracy, and in our common sense is mostly where to find the middle and where to find the truth. And let's get out of politics and get into something which we really don't see. I mean, how come that the fact that we had the years of drought here in Colorado, that the temperature is rising, sea level is rising, all these things, hundreds of species extincting every year. How come that this become debatable thing? How come that the narrative which says that a small group of environmental organizations spend limited funds to conspire with 97% of the scientists to falsify this thing we call the climate change? Because of course it's Chinese hoax, or somebody's hoax. And of course it's Chinese hoax. How come that the climate change caps are in Chinese interest when they're polluting that much? Once again, it's not related to the facts. When you're asking yourself these questions, this is not the aim. The aim is this. This is what people believe about the vaccine. You know, this thing that saved lives, which went through all of these trials, 1.1 million misinformation articles were detected between January 1st and May 26th. 46% of them were conspiracy theories. So it will disappear magically. Remember that press conference? The virus, it will just disappear. Magically disappear on a golf course. And of course, the deep state that wants us to distract and get vaccinated. It's a Democratic Party hoax. It's a Wuhan lab bioweapon. It's Bill Gates, that's my favorite. You know why? Because it explains everything. You remember, it was not only Bill Gates giving you a vaccine to put a microchip so they know when you go pee or whatever, groceries. But you need a re-vaccine, so you need a booster. Why? Because he got divorced from Melinda Gates. So you get Bill's one, and then Melinda's one, and then it's all okay. And then the bat suit, anti-Semitic conspiracy. 5G, in Serbia it was very popular, 5G and HARP. Like when we move to the 5G, this must be some surveillance. And then there's this HARP, this machine that controls wealth. So, and somebody cooked the bat, that's my favorite. It's like, I partly believe in that. It started when somebody cooked the bat in China. It's like they're eating bats, it treats our other prejudices. But basically, however funny you can talk about this is truth. And our only personal defense from this truth is critical thinking. There is no other way you can run this thing or you can beat this thing. Part of the critical thinking is spending some time watching movies. I would highly recommend two of them to your attention. One is super fun blockbuster, it's called Don't Look Up, where Meryl Streep plays an American president, and she's amazing. That's everything I will say. And the other one is really scary. It's a documentary called The Social Dilemma. You can really listen to the people who made Twitter, who made Facebook, who made Instagram. And just to get an idea, the first sentence in the movie is from one of these, the woman who made Reddit. And she said, there are only two industries in this world who call their consumers users. Illegal drugs and social media. This is how it starts, like the first minute. So you go there and you understand the algorithm. And of course, it's like if we are looking on the good side of the things and want somehow to fix democracy, first thing is education. And Scandinavian countries have already great programs. So starting from a elementary school, they educate kids for critical, like they teach kids how to understand the world that they will inherit and navigate this thing. Of course, support pro-democratic movements. The world will be less evil if it would be ruled by less evil people. And then, of course, start a debate on, it's like, this is Colorado, very libertarian state, this is a slippery thing. But we need to find a way to regulate this somehow. 80% of social media users is owned by 4 people. I'll give you just two names. One is named Mark Zuckerberg, another one is named Elon Musk. How do you like that? Like hate speech. Let's say regulate internet, these kind of stuff. It's like, if you can pay $50 to buy a bot factory, which is the group of fake accounts that are liking your posts, and you're selling apparel, you're not even in politics. So then you post in apparel immediately, and then it starts feeding people's newsfeed. And then same works for politics. If you can buy that, what Putin can buy, or Xi. Like these things, like this fake news thing which boosts what you see even if you don't want to see it, somehow needs to be regulated. Remember there was a time when people were smoking in TV studios? This is not the time. There was a time where, you could advertise in less than 5 seconds. and then people figure out it goes under conscious. So there must be some kind of regulation. Most importantly, we need to reinvent the positive narratives like democracy. This is not, Ronald Reagan was not my favorite American president, but he has my favorite presidential quote saying that democracy is always one generation far from extinction. So I dislike him for some stuff, but I agree with this statement. So, long story short, this is where I end with a little bit of a conclusion. It is the important battlefield. It is the way to rule. It is the way how we buy. It is the way how we see the world. We are not winning this war for truth. We need to do something bigger than that. And the key is to stick to our values and find a way to reinvent and communicate our values in this world. Otherwise, we are lost. So, further ado, thank you for your attention. And I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, so I have a microphone. I'm sure some of you have questions. So you just want to raise your hand. I'll bring it to you. It is on. Okay, it's on. It's on.
It's not loud
Promise.
Button pushing. It is just a little poetry in mind. You can use mine. Probably the easiest way. And I can yell.
Okay, now I have a microphone. Speak. Like, just ask the first question.
Hi, my name is Chantal. It's a pleasure to be here to hear you. I guess my question is for us new generation parents. So let's go into the 90s babies and, and further, right? Let's say 85 and up, right? How do those parents navigate this? How can they help, aside from the knowledge that they know some of this is propaganda, they know that some of this is not fluid information or information that is going to do anything to feed the new generation. How can they go about, I don't even want to say blocking, but how can they block that from their children and keep them from being blinded by this information?
That's a tough question. I don't have an answer to it, having two screen addicts myself. You don't believe me? You want to meet them? Yeah, but like there are three things we should be thinking of. One is the role of parents, and I don't think there is a formula for this. The way my wife and I do it, we'll let them do whatever they want to do, as long as they talk to us. So, in this age, they're like, they will talk to you. If they see something, they will tell you. And then the beauty of, how do you call this, abundance of things. So like you can let them watch YouTubers, but sometimes you point their attention to Tibet. Like Mama spent 25 minutes yesterday watching a thing about Nepal, and then the mountains, and then the temple, and then these kind of stuff. So directing their attention to the right side, on one hand. On the other hand, using this, limitations and filters that you can. But I think systemically, this becomes a problem too big to be left to the parents. I would seriously sign any kind of initiative that goes into teaching kids at young age this at school. I mean, we teach them how to deal in a case of tornado, school shooting. I mean, this is important, earthquake, but how many earthquakes will they have in their lives? How many hours on damn YouTube they have every day? Yeah, can you prepare them for a tornado? I mean, it's okay, but let's do a little bit on this. And Finland, Sweden, and I think Norway, I'm not sure, but at least 2 Scandinavian countries has these programs operating in school, like how to distinguish truth, how to find, like the critical thinking and receiving information, and they start early. They start in the 4th, 5th grade of elementary school. So I think the answer is regulating it in a part, being a parent, trying to do it at home. But I think seriously for the mental health in our kids, understanding the truth, doing this kind of stuff. On the good side of the thing, we had this marvelous event called High School Symposium a few days ago at Colorado College. And I spoke like there were 116 to 18 kiddos. Most of them knew more about climate change than I do. So their interests are in the right direction. We just need to protect them from a crap. Whoever holds the mic, remove it from your body. Oh, yeah. This is very well. A little bit down. Okay. Now I have a mic and there is one in the audience. Good.
Hi, Srdja, I'm Mila. So kind of the opposite question to what you were asking, as part of the newer generation, I also see older generations like my parents, your generation, and even older people also being very susceptible to propaganda because of the media. And I think a big part of that, especially coming... And I think... And I think a big part of that, especially coming from the Balkans, is the generational propaganda that has been going on for decades, considering what happened in the Balkans in the 20th century. So my question with you to be, how do we go about kind of countering this generational propaganda that doesn't necessarily spread just through the media, but also spreads through word of mouth in a lot of the families, and it's kind of ingrained with the family values that a lot of people are raised with. And then me and Ori were talking about this. How do we go about telling our parents that the bullshit that they see on social media is fake and is not true? Because trust me, you might think that we're becoming iPad kids, but some of the older generations I have seen is even more ridiculous. Yeah. So.
Yeah. This is a good point, and it drives me back to another, like, we often have this conversations. When I say we, I think we, the middle-aged / old people, and I'm reminding conversation, always reminding conversation that I have with John Wolf here, who is another middle-aged person, and telling about the member of his family. And they don't even speak because of politics anymore. And I had tough clashes with my own brother about this. And this thing is kind of like, instead of looking it from generation to generation, I would be looking into family and go one step back and say, if you are the grown up in a room, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're the older. To be a grown up in a room that has nothing to do with your biological age, as you explained. You should be the person saying, how the fuck the family Thanksgiving or Slava dinner turned into the political fight. How do we, the family, let this virus infect us? Because that makes you grown up. Not saying, oh, you don't like this thing because it's crap and it's coming from Fox. And look at this beautiful thing coming from MSNBC. This is not how the things are going. Because the biggest danger I see, as you pointed, is atomizing the society. Atomize, I know, how many of you have read a wonderful book called 1984 by George W. Orwell? You remember how this anti-utopia works? by state training kids to spy and report on parents. Okay? It is the horizontal relationship which keep community and democracy alive. The most important one being the family, of course, and then the neighbors, and then the people you bring your school with, and then the community, and then these kind of stuff. So bringing this, instead of looking into how it spreads, because tablets and Facebook, it's only the messenger, it's the vehicle, you want to see it where it hits. How you redevelop the social fabric of the family, and how you remove this stinking plate of shit called political quarrel from the table. And that will make you be a grown-up, regardless of whether you can buy beer or not. In the US. In my country, you can buy beer, we are fair. We sell kids beer. Makes them strong. Yeah, she's loud. I know her, she's loud.
We have an election coming up. What do you think is the best way to prepare everyone for what is coming in the next year with the presidential election?
Presidential election. I'm more focused on the 11 elections. Everybody looks into his or her own yard. So this is a great thing, and like first of all, I'm the least in the room expert on American elections. I still didn't figure out why you need electoral college. For God's sake, I don't even understand why you need 2 Dakotas or Carolinas to start with. Sorry, Rachel. The one is too beautiful, Carolina, so we need to split it in half. I like this thing. So I think, once again, getting to common sense, there is this amazing study I read recently that goes to this tribalism and understanding how tribalism always feeds extremes in every situation. Part of this is a right-wing kind of this new breed. I didn't call it Trumpism. It's not Republicanism. It has not. Like they will expel Ronald Reagan from the Republican Party. He will be right Republican in the name only, because he doesn't want to serve Putin, for example. He's not a nativist. He believes that America should lead the world and stuff like that. And he's not conservative. But basically, the same crap is coming from the left, and it's an ugly issue. So it's like looking into mainstream saving the middle, but that means saving the dialogue, saving the capability to talk with the people you disagree, is where I see some kind of chance. My point here is like looking into American political landscape and being on visiting conservative states and then visiting super blue states or super woke states, whatever label you want to give them, makes me really happy for living in Colorado. Like, you guys are so privileged. You want to go live in Florida? Or you want to go live in Boston, where you apply for a school job and you start your mail with ladies and gentlemen. And then immediately you're disqualified for job because calling women ladies somehow became a sexism. Was the next thing we're going to cancel London Bridge is falling down, My Fair Lady? Know that song? So like really looking into how we can live together in some kind of spirit of community. And then winning this election for Democrats mean waking up from the fact that we are sitting on our fat ass and wait people to vote against Trump. If you want real democracy, unpenetrable democracy in America, I'm sorry to say that because there are only a few people this age, you want to take a look at participation. More people participate in the election, more stable democracy it is. You're blessed with the fact that 3 million voters at the age between 18 and 21 became eligible for this election. You could be super disappointed with the fact that their average turnout on the election is 18%. So how we make these people participate more, vote more? Because it is them who will inherit this country, Jen. You're in 40s, I'm in 50s. You know, it's them. And they will inherit the climate change and this amazing healthcare system, which I will not elaborate here. But basically the point is how you get more of the new people into politics. Because that's the spice which will make the soup being more tasty, more diverse, and then you don't have like, you have only 2 dishes in a fridge, as opposed to have many dishes in a fridge. So I really love what happened here with mayoral elections. It's not only because I know you. That's not the reason. It's because wherever I go from Colorado Springs, I'm proud of this town. It has 8% of the black people. Nothing, so he couldn't be elected if all the black people theoretically voted for him. It was the war between somebody who want to work on a city and a developers. And for all of his liberalism and color of skin, he was elected because he was against developers. And that means that people here vote having their city first, and then their party and whatever, God pronounces whatever is driving them to the different directions. And this guy's not even Afro-American, he's a naturalized Nigerian. I know, I had coffee with him. So basically that's democracy. That's what it should be. We need more Yemis, regardless of their political stance, color of their skins. And we need more people who we vote based on what they think is important, not what this shit is feeding them is important. I try to talk them to death, but it doesn't. So, no.
Are there any possibilities to use propaganda method to defeat propaganda, just like the knowledge, emotions, and tactic?
Absolutely. First of all, sticking to 2 works, and especially the live testimonials work. So despite all this stuff, here. Oh, come on, don't die. No, I died. Okay. Despite all the conspiracies about vaccines, for example, the fact that you knew elderly people who didn't die because they got vaccines, the fact that you knew people who went through COVID easier because they have vaccines. So like truth is not this strange thing that you can just, it's not just a rainbow. It's a real thing when it comes to when the rubber hits the road. And then using this testimonials, and as Mila pointed, this is also the power of source. Because it is one thing to have more posts from somebody you follow on Instagram. It's another thing to hear it from your friend, from your neighbor, from your relative. It comes with a weight. So using truth and real life stories and real narratives is the way to use communication skills for good. Not all propaganda is bad. There's an amazing book done by a friend of mine that I had pleasure to bring on this stage some years ago. Her name is Tina Rosenberg. She's a New York Times Pulitzer Award journalist. She's a cool woman as well. And she wrote a great book called Join the Club. Join the Club is a book about the 3 youth movements, one of them being my movement in Srdja. This is how I met Tina. Another one, destroying the stigma around HIV/AIDS. It was stigmatized once, seriously stigmatized. And the third one is making smoking non-cool from cool. All of these victories were created by groups of people that worked as a movement, and it was peer-to-peer, and it started from your generation. Amazing. And yes, they were using propaganda and messaging and facts and emotions as a tools. So there are many good things that we achieved when we can work together. And yes, these tools can be used for good. The fact is that these particular points, our opponents are investing more and using it more skillfully. You want to ask a question?
No, okay.
Edin is leaving. Thank you, Professor Mukic. Always pleasure being with you.
So
To work properly, every Serb needs a Bosnian.
I have one more, and it might be a little hard to answer, I don't know. But how do you deal with, so we figure systemic racism and things like that, right? Dealing with my own people, as in my own African, my own culture, Black culture. How would I deal with that in an area where I feel sometimes we also become brainwashed by what we were used to, our DNA, our lineage, things like that, and then we bring that into now, which makes it a little bit harder for us as African Americans to deal with each other or to be able to see each other in a different light. If that makes sense. I hope I said
But that makes a lot of sense. Once again, I spend my time between here and UVA, and UVA, as you know, is in Charlottesville. And this is where the moment you step in, they start feeding you with, they see that you're white and they need to vaccinate you against the racism, like immediately. So you need to learn that, you know, Thomas Jefferson had a slave that he slept with, and this building is built by the slaves. And say, wait, guys, that's the first stereotype you're having about me. Where I'm coming from, we abandoned slavery in 9th century. The fact that you guys were doing this shit until 300 years ago, it's your problem, not mine. So let's start with this. So this is true. And then you meet with the people, the amazing Afro-American activists, that Charlottesville is full of them. And they're joyful and they do great stuff in housing and stuff like that. But you see anger. And that anger is real. And it's a historic pain. Linkin Park will say, these wounds, they will not heal. But, you know, in order to heal these wounds, you want to take a look at what works best. And one way to look at it is through pillars that we teach in our class and understanding the wider picture. And I had a great friend named Andre Henry. It's a book you want to read. It's called All the White Friends I Can't Keep. He's one of the BLM leaders of I think in LA. He's a hip hopper. Like, he's not even an activist, he's a musician. And I spoke with him on several occasions on this, and we danced this together because he's an Afro-American and leading the movement, and I'm this white, creepy, Slavic, non-politically correct, punch me in a gun type of guy. And we're always dancing his dance, and within this dance, we say, okay, it's like, let's take a look at the pillars. So BLM was focusing on police. Police is a cough of COVID. You don't cure COVID by stopping the cough. You cure COVID by killing a virus or preventing the virus ever to step back. So you need to take one step back and see how people living in Southeast Colorado Springs were not black but Latino. Of course, because their property value less. Then their schools are worse than the school my kids go to. So you want to take a look at educational racism. You want to look at the rate of loans the bank will give you. You want to take a look at the chances these people have to succeed if you want to cure it. Okay, you want to take a look at police brutality because this is a very important thing. But fixing the first three is where you look at the system. On another side, which is a person-to-person side, I had an amazing debate. It's like it was sometimes life throws to you amazing people that you don't expect. So I was in Baltimore a few months after the violent protest there in 2016, 15, 16, 7, 8 years ago. And there was an Uber driver. It's a very long road from the airport to, I think I was on John Hopkins. So I spent like 30 minutes. And it was middle of the night, and the guy was really talkative. The guy was the former policeman, and he drives Uber now. He's retired. And we were discussing this, and I like playing blunt with people and asking stupid questions. So they tell me more than they would if they kind of get scared. And he told me a story about there were youth community centers in Baltimore. So the city was founding community centers where youth from poor neighborhoods, e.g. mostly Afro-Americans of course, would be going after school for a little bit of a daycare because their moms and dads were doing, $8 an hour job in Subway or somewhere. And there will be a certain number of hours assigned to the city officers to spend there. So policemen will go there, the firemen would go there, the clerks will go there. And they will just hang out with these kids who of course like the fire trucks and stuff like that, like every kid. And they'll help them do the homework, and then of course these kids will beat their ass in basketball or whatever they're superior to. And these kids were first to report on dealers in their neighborhood. So we were investing money at one point in our history of not only erasing the social distance between poor and deprived and privileged and black and white in the same time. At least in Baltimore, it's black and white. Here it's Latino and white. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's racial, but it's also economic chances. And then one day the city decided they want to fund it, they will have money to do this. Next thing you know, you had this inner cities, which is politically correct word for something we call ghetto. And it's called barrios in Latin America. So I mean, it's like we need to find spaces where people hang together, different people hang together. There's a movement called, you want to check on them, a friend of mine launched, it's called Camaradas. They do this in UK with poor people and rich people. And they're bringing people from privileged neighborhoods with the people from poor neighborhoods. Most of them are immigrants, of course. And they make rich people cook for poor people. And they make rich privileged people, middle class people, asking poor people for help. Not vice versa, not offering help. And there is a dialogue type of way how these people communicate. And it makes miracles. Because neighborhoods that have these centers are less prone to violence, robberies, all of this shit which comes from a social inequality. So there are ways to do it. Once again, like the answer to the first question was bringing people together. The main reason why this proliferation of propaganda is dangerous is the atomization. And when you are in the echo chamber and you're listening only to the people that are like you, and then they become a bulk of angry people who are around you, then you're listening only to angry people. The echo chambers are the way they will recruit you, and propaganda does you to join ISIS. You can be brainwashed for almost everything if you're exposed only to one source of information. You can even believe that Serbs are clever if you talk only to me. I can persuade you. We are not, but if you're listening to me very long, then you'll start believing. It's become the only truth. Or they are all 7 feet tall and MVPs like Jokic.
Do we have more questions for Srdja? No. Please help me thank Srdja once again.
I need to bring my most cards into the conversation. Let's go.
Okay. Srdja, you can grab a beer now.
Or
And some apple juice
or
for
two
the kiddos. Our next speaker series event is on October 26th and is entitled Woman, Life, Freedom: How Iranian Movement for Women's Rights Inspired the World, and Where Are We Now 1 year after? With amazing woman Fatemeh Hajihatu, leading advocate of human rights and democracy in Iran and former member of Iran's Reform Parliament. After that, on November 1st, we will have another equally amazing lady, former US Ambassador to Ukraine, Maria Yovanovich, also the author of the New York Times bestseller memoir, Lessons from the Edge. So that's November 1st. For registration for this and other upcoming events, please refer to our most recent email or our website at csworldaffairs.org, or simply call Aaron or me directly. Thank you once again for supporting CSWAG. Thank you for coming tonight. One more thing, the bar is still open. We have the space till 9, so grab a drink and have fun. Thank you so much.